This is James Lupton, delighted to join with Paul Zanon. Paul, today we're going to be looking into some fighter profiles. So this episode is going to be Fighting Harada, or one of, if not the greatest Japanese fighter ever. Obviously, more recent times, Inoue has put his name in the mix there, but before Naoya Inoue, there was Fighting Harada. You wrote an article for British Vintage Boxing recently about this man. Talk to me a little bit, first of all, about what you found most surprising about him when you were doing your research.
One of the things for starters, he finished off his career as a featherweight at 5'3", and a lot of people are thinking 5'3", that's really short. But there was a certain featherweight on British shores who was 5'3.5", if you want to be exact, by the name of Prince Nassim Hamed. And when you're shorter and you've got speed and power, it's quite a lethal combination at that weight. It really is, and Inoue's much bigger frame, a lot sort of taller. You can almost sort of compare Inoue to like a bantamweight Carlos Monzon. The sort of square shoulders and those long levers with a shitload of power behind them. But Harada he was kind of a comparison, you could say. It was like a sort of 118-pound Mike Tyson. He'd go in there and he was suffocating with his punches. He could dig. He could really dig, and he could mix it with some people from so many different styles. At the time, there was a lot of talk about how he didn't go overseas very much, which is true. I think it was maybe 3 fights he had overseas. I think he went to Australia, America, and Thailand when he won the title. Actually, no, when he lost it, he won it in Japan, went over to Thailand, and then sort of lost it over there. But he you can't argue with the fact at who he fought. There was one fighter called Eder Joffre, who was a multi-weight world champion. Very, very good fighter. If you check his record, he had about 73, 74 fights, and he only lost 2 fights. Never stopped in his life, only lost 2 fights. And they were both against our man Fighting Harada. And Joffre, it's not a case of Joffre underestimated him even. It was just a case that Harada was awkward as hell, and Shorter got in there. If you haven't watched Fighting Harada before, go onto YouTube, look at some of his highlights. He was doing stuff that fighters try these days. Gervonta Davis, you'll see him going in, banging in 3 hooks to the body. Harada was doing this, 60-odd years ago. He would triple, quadruple, sometimes 6, 7 times a hook to the same place. Another person who does that is Triple G. You see, I remember Martin Murray once saying that. He said Golovkin caught him at an uppercut. He covered up. He thought he won't throw that again. Bang, hit him again with exactly the same uppercut in his nose. And then just when he thought, okay, well, that's it. He's done it twice now. He wouldn't be stupid enough to do it a 3rd time. Opened his guy, crack, did it again. Martin said his nose went up the size of a plum. So, but Harada was that same sort of person that he would hit again, again, and again if he knew the punch was working. And he also had a really vicious overhand right, again, like a mini Golovkin. So he was very, very, very good. The only issue was that 5'3", as with a lot of fighters, as you get older and you're keeping yourself in great shape, you start to build up muscle mass. And there's a really, really tough, a very, very thin line where you're thinking, do I not build up the muscle and sort of just try and keep my weight as it is? It's tough because the fitter you become, the more muscle you build up, and you tend to have very, very little body fat on there, and it becomes a real fight against yourself. And that's why he kind of went from bantamweight, completely skipped super bantam, went into feather for the balance of his career. But very, very tough fighter, very, very tough fighter, and certainly without a doubt, before Inoue, for me, Fighting Harada was the man to research and look at within Japan.
This is a man who turned professional at the age of 16 years old. Let's just talk about that, because that's not something that is easy to do.
Yeah, well, there's only a few people that can do that, because physically you haven't. A lot of people haven't matured. When I was 15, I was long and stringy and probably 5, 6 inches shorter than I am now in terms of my height. So other people genetically just mature quicker. Take Marco Antonio Barrera. I think he debuted when he was about 15. Canelo, another one, I think he debuted when he was about 15 as well. Obviously, different legislation in Mexico. But Mike Tyson, age 13. I mean, geez, there's not very much. It did not very different to the sort of fully grown man we see in front of us now. But you take Lennox Lewis. Lennox was sparring Tyson, I think, when Lennox was something like 20 and Tyson was like 15 or 16. And Tyson was beating the shit out of Lennox. Lennox was thinking, here I am, a much taller, sort of bigger guy, but he was sort of a little bit wiry, and he was fighting to an extent what was equivalent of a fully grown man. So, but yeah, turned pro at 16, and he had the Sasaki brothers who were managing and training him with strict rules of no sake and no women. So taking two, vital pleasures away from blokes, and but he stuck with the discipline, and that was it. That his battle with weight wasn't food, that's for sure. It was literally just a case of the way he was bulking up. But very, very, very talented fighter, incredibly talented, and I wonder how he would have done in current day sort of rankings, and also with maybe sort of nutritional advice these days, maybe would have been able to hold down bantam, or maybe have gone up to super bantam instead. He was a very, very good world champion who perhaps was maybe protected a little bit too much in Japan. It would have been nice for him to, got on the road a little bit, gone out to America a little bit, because in America they love that sort of toe-to-toe style, and he provided that all the time. But yeah, it's still alive to this day, if memory serves me correct. I think he's about 80 years old. He's just done my quick check there. He's still alive. But there was a lovely little passing of the torch when Inoue won the World Boxing Super Series in 2019, and the person to present him the Muhammad Ali Trophy in Saitama, Japan, after beating Onito Donaire was Fighting Harada. And not a lot of people, a lot of people would have been watching that thinking, who's this old geezer over here handing over the trophy? Well, that old fucking geezer, even at the age of 70 odd there, could probably still knock you out, So, Japanese, very, very respectful race. And I can't think of any Japanese boxer who's ever trash talk at a press conference. And, if you were to be disrespectful to them at a press conference or in the ring, and if it happens to be someone called Inoue, then God help you.
We've got the likes of Inoue, Kenshiro, Nakatani, all these Japanese fighters coming through who are very, very good fighters. Would we have seen those fighters today without Fighting Harada, in your opinion?
I think we would have. Yeah, I think we would have. There was almost a bit of a lull there of good Japanese fighters. I guess sort of going in 80s, 90s, early 2000s, that sort of time there. There was some great, just thinking about sort of that part of the world, that geography, some great Korean fighters over the years. There's been an abundance of them. There's never been a gap in there whatsoever. But Inoue entered the scene something very, very special. He didn't put Japan on the map. He put Japan back on the map when it came to boxing. And with that, has also gone on to become a pound for pound best fighter in history. There's people out there who rank him as number one, and you could certainly say in the top three. I would say in the top three at the moment is Canelo, Terence Crawford, and Inoue. I wouldn't put Tyson Fury anywhere near the top 10 at the moment due to inactivity and fighting grapplers. So, but yeah, Inoue would go in there with anyone from any background, and if he doesn't knock them out brutally, then he will pummel them to shit for 12 rounds. So I think that the reason why people know Japanese boxing at the moment is Inoue, but people don't realize that there is great heritage there, and Fighting Harada is one to check out. Just go onto YouTube and check out greatest knockouts or summary of him or something like that. It'd be 3 well-spent minutes if you're a genuine boxing fan.
Absolutely.